and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and move directly into the comments portion for some much-needed comments regarding our colleague, Council Member Kevin Wilkie. After that, we will go ahead and resume with our normal agenda. So it is a little bit of a different structure than we're normally used to, but I think that this certainly warrants that we do this at this time. So what I'd like to do is first off let everybody here know that Councilmember Kevin Wilkie passed away 2 weeks ago today. There's going to be a celebration of life for him this coming Sunday at the bar from 1 to 4. And what we have done so far to date is that we've gone ahead and lowered the city flags both here by the City Hall and also by the bank to half-mast in Kevin's honor. In addition, on the 29th of May, we will have a tree planting ceremony over at the park with a tree that Kevin's widow, Robin, had selected. I believe it's some sort of a maple tree, if I'm not mistaken. We will go ahead and plant that, and there'll be a plaque that will be dedicated along with the tree as a lasting memory of Councilmember Kevin Wilkie, not only for his service to the City Council for the City of Sueur, but also 20 years as a member of the Fire Department for the City of Sueur. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to anybody that has anything to go ahead and say or any comments that they'd like to make in regards to Councilmember Wilkie.
This is going to be a little hard without shedding a tear. I ran for council because I had been asked a number of times and I wasn't going to run. And it was Kevin that wound up convincing me to do this. There were others that said, this is easy, and that he only met a couple of times a month. And I didn't care for that. It didn't matter to me. What Kevin said was, I think you'd be good at this. Most of you don't know this, but for the entire time that we've been on council, he's been feeding me hot balls. And
that's great.
it's kind of a joke thing between us, but he knew that I liked them, and he would sit here and just keep feeding them over to me. I'm going to miss him a lot. He was on Merpuck with me, and he was a good guy and a good friend.
I have received this letter from Mark Huntington. He is not present today. He's on a business trip, and he asked me to read this. I wanted to express this in person, but unfortunately I am currently on a business trip. It was with deep sadness of hearing the passing of my dear friend and colleague Kevin. I will miss him greatly, and it has been a great honor in knowing him. He gave me a great perspective on the city council, having growing up in Sueur, that has helped me in some of the decisions I have made on city council. To the Wilkie family, Robin and Chris, and all of Kevin's family, from the entire Huntington family, our deepest sympathy. Thank you for sharing Kevin with us on the city council. He will not be forgotten. His legacy on what he has done for the city will live on. So, thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And if anybody from the audience would also like to say anything, you're certainly welcome to step up to the dais and say whatever. Otherwise, if we're done, we will go ahead and proceed. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Eileen Wells. My husband's Rick Pouts, and I are good friends of Kevin and Robin. We've been friends for a really long time. I want to commend you for the actions that you've taken in Kevin's memory and in his honor. I was heartened to see that there was some recognition of his service to the city of Sueur. I have to tell you that he and my husband spoke about 3 times a day, every day for probably the last 5 years. And during those, once in a while, I'd answer the phone and Kevin would talk to me. And during that, I just want you to know that he was very proud to be a member of this council. And he was very concerned for the citizens and the city of Sueur. And I think that it's a tribute to him. The tree is a very nice idea, and he would be proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please do.
I can't say that Kevin and I were close. We mainly knew each other through the council, but it was always such a pleasure to work with him. And I don't think you'll have ever found anybody that cared more about this city and what happened here than he did. He was often quiet during our meetings, but he was always fully engaged. I don't mean anything wrong with that. He was an exceptional listener, and I think helped us make very good decisions. So I much appreciated his presence here.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Krogman. Councilmember Roloff, did you have something too?
Yep. I just wanted to add that over the past few extra years of having the honor to serve on the city council on the city council with Kevin, he was a great extra mentor for me. And I've gotten to know him actually very well over the past actually few years. It was very tough on the day that I found out that he passed away. I wish I would have been able to have the chance to go see him, but unfortunately I wasn't able to. He was a truly a great friend of mine, and he has helped me grow as a person on his city council.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Roloff. Without further ado, if I could get everybody to stand for a moment of silence, please, in behalf of Councilmember Kevin Wilkie. Thank you. We will now go to our normal portion of our city council meeting, and with that, looking for an approval of the agenda.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Tonight, our consent agenda consists of the city council minutes for April 23rd, 2018, which have been amended, the approval of disbursements through May 14th, 2018, and the local government information system known as LOGIS, board member designee and alternate designee. Please.
If I could, I'll give a little update on some comments that I've received. City council meetings, the meeting minutes have been provided. There is one small change on one of the votes that occurred on the 23rd. I believe it was the vote on the org structure amendment. In the minutes, it said, I believe 6-0, it was 5-1 with Mark Huntington dissenting. So that was amended. In the disbursements, one thing you'll notice is that there are a lot of liability insurance and auto insurance items in there. So this is the time of year that we make that payment to the League of Minnesota Cities. I believe it totaled just over $60,000. And each department pays for their portion of their liability insurance, so, and their auto insurance. So you'll see the electric, because of the work they do, their general liability insurance is is quite a bit more than a lot of the other organizations or divisions. Trying to think, was there anything else that was brought up as far as disbursements go? That was the big one that I got a couple comments about.
Yeah, the audit expense too.
Oh, yep. We're going through the 2017 financial audit process. We have paid that invoice. They will be here, I believe, the first meeting in June to present their audit findings for 2017. So that expenditure is $20,000, and it was split up between various departments. The local government information system board member designee and alternate designee, essentially what that is designating 2 city staff employees to be present at board meetings for Logis, which is the company that provides us our software for our permits inspections software. So we can give input to the board because we're part of that group on enhancements to the software, things that we would like them to change, update, things of that nature. So it'll be good to be involved with that, and hopefully, they'll listen to Sueur when we're up there. But that's all I have on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. City Administrator. If any of our city council members have anything regarding the consent agenda, regarding questions or concerns, if not, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to go ahead and approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We now move into our public comment portion of our meeting. If you wish to participate in public comment, you must sign up prior to the commencement of the meeting. Negative remarks about city staff or employees is not allowed. You have a time limit of 5 minutes to comment. The total public comment shall be 30 minutes for non-agenda items and 30 minutes per agenda item. Disruptive or disorderly behavior will not be tolerated. I don't believe we had anybody sign up tonight. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to address City Council tonight? I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and close the public comment.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Public comment is closed. We now move to public hearings. The first thing on the docket is sale of PID 21-999-0370, 21-999-0380, 21-999-0362, 21-999-361, 21-999-1360, 21-999-0363, and 21-999-1175. We open up now the public hearing for this portion.
If I may, Mayor Higgs, if we could have a motion to open the public hearing and then see if there's anybody here that wants to comment on this, we can do so, and then we would close the public hearing. But I can give a little update on what this actually is before, if there's somebody out in the public that does want to comment.
Is there a motion to go ahead and open public hearing for tonight?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Public hearing is now open. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to go ahead and address City Council and our City Administrator on the sale of any of these PIDs? Okay, perhaps you'd like to go ahead and give City Council more of an insight on 6 Alpha and 6 Bravo.
Yeah, so this is something that Community Development Director Samantha DiMaggio has been working on for some time with AgriPure. They've been interested in these parcels. Originally, these parcels were slated to do a realignment of 2nd Street, which, because of their potential expansion, was put on hold with the 2nd Street project that occurred last year. So there are 7 parcels. The city of Le Sueur owns all 7. We have fee title for those. AgriPure has offered $115,000 for all of these parcels. The idea is that potentially there could be some expansion in the future from AgriPure. That's what we're hoping that will come from this. Staff feels that the price is fair. If you look at the taxable market value of those parcels, roughly totals to $111,000, and the offer is $115,000. So with that, I'll entertain any questions City Council may have. And just logistics note, this is the first reading of the ordinance that would approve this sale. If directed by City Council, they can waive the first reading and direct staff to hold the second reading at the next city council meeting, which is May 29th. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
I don't want to be clear. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned 6A and B. I think we're only doing 6A. Just to be clear. Thank you.
You are correct. I stand corrected. Right now, we're dealing strictly with 7 parcels in question. Any questions for our city administrator? With none, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to waive the reading of the first reading of this ordinance and recommend staff to make final preparations for the second reading on May 29th.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We now move on to 6 Bravo, which is conduct the public hearing for the sale of PID 21.999.0050. And again, I go ahead and, I guess I should formally do this. I'll go ahead and look for a motion to open up the public hearing for this parcel.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to discuss the sale of PID 21.999.00050? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the sale of PID 21.999.0050.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's carried. Mr. City Administrator, if you would, please.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, this was one of the first projects Janelle Teppin tasked me with when I started as public services director, is to coordinate the demo of the 3rd Street garage that was originally the Public Works building way back when. So right now, it's been demoed, it's been cleaned up, it's essentially a vacant piece of property. Management from the Sueur apartments located just to the north of the property have reached out to city staff indicating that they would like to offer to buy the parcel for $5,000 from the city of Sueur. Now, when you're looking at Beacon, the taxable value of the land is estimated at $30,500. The reality of us getting that for that parcel, I believe, would be very difficult. So basically, the way I see it, that city council's role is to evaluate the offer and give direction to staff on how they feel we should proceed. Keep in mind that logistically, this would be the first reading. There will be a second reading where if the second reading is waived and passed, then we would be authorized to go and sell this piece of property for the $5,000. Now, a couple of things to consider when evaluating this. This is a piece of property that has remained off the tax roll for a very long time. It did have a designated public purpose when it was originally the Public Works building, but for the last 20 years, it's been kind of a storage unit. It has been it was very dilapidated when it was tore down, and it wasn't functional at all as far as good cold storage for the city of Sueur. So right now, there is no designation of public purpose for this parcel. So the way I look at it is this a fair offer? Personally, I would like to see more. Personally, I don't know if there would be more if we would reject this. That's a risk that council will have to evaluate. But the big thing, and one of the things that Samantha DiMaggio and myself are working on, are doing an inventory of all the land that the city owns and trying to determine if there is a public purpose for that land, something in the future that has been determined. Well, then we can justifiably keep that. If there isn't, we should try to move it, get it on the tax roll, and kind of boost that the tax revenue from these parcels. Now, $30,500 taxable value for this property seems high. I don't know if that'll change when or if the property changes hands, but we're looking at anywhere from $500 to $800 a year in potential taxable income that we would receive from this. Now, if it gets classified something different than what it is right now, that potentially could go up. If it's associated with multifamily housing, there could be some changes. It depends on how the county assessor handles it. But to me, the bottom line is that we're losing out on some potential revenue. We don't have a public purpose. I think we have to legitimately evaluate an offer for $5,000. We don't have a lot shortage in town as far as single-family homes go. My biggest fear, we reject this offer and then we now sit on it for another 25 years or something like that. Now, that's a city council decision and I'll take direction either way.
To be clear, City Administrator, a question that I would have is that currently the city of Sueur would then be responsible for maintaining this property as far as the lawn and the street and everything associated with it. So we are spending money as a city to go ahead and maintain this property. And secondly, Councilmember Johnson did voice his opinion in regards to the price. If we could in fact get more, and I think you've gone ahead and certainly told City Council regarding what the situation is. We're looking at a parcel of land that's 0.35 acres and the likelihood of that particular property being bought up by somebody else within the city or elsewhere. Sure, it's a gamble. You go ahead and wait for perhaps somebody that would be willing to go ahead and give more, but it's also a situation where we can actually close out this, get it back onto our tax ranks, and start receiving some money where we're not expending resources to go ahead and maintain this property. So I personally am in favor of doing this, knowing that the due diligence has been done by both our Community Development Director and our City Administrator. Anybody else have any comments?
I have a question.
Please.
If we sold it for 5,000 and it's currently valued at 3,500, wouldn't that sale at 5,000 substantially at least affect the value?
It could. There's more that goes into it than direct sales as far as when they're calculating estimated market values, but you would think so. You look at some of the lots that are up in Cedar Ridge or down in Turl Estates, and you look at what they're paying per acre, it doesn't match up with the $30,500 EMV for that. Now, there aren't any assessments or anything of that nature on this parcel, so it would be a straight value, but you're looking at roughly around $100,000 an acre for this parcel, based on the taxable value. So that would be a question for, I believe, Shane Bender, what it would be, the county assessor, as far as what a sale of 5,000 would do to the estimated market value.
And we could get that information before the next meeting. Excuse me, Johnny.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I sure could.
What is it zoning there? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I believe if I would guess, it would be R3.
That's what I was thinking too.
Okay, and as far as a neighborhood goes, you have the apartments plus parking lot. What is to the south? What is to the south of that lot?
There's another single-family home just to the south on the east side of 3rd Street.
The likelihood of somebody coming in to buy the property to go ahead and build another single-family dwelling, what's the possibilities of something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it could happen, but in my opinion, there's other lots in Sueur at this moment. Now, this could change if these lots fill up, but at this moment that are priced more competitively than this. This one would be compared to the estimated market value.
I own a lot that is larger than that I paid just slightly more, and it's location-wise, it's in a better location. So I'm saying that I paid slightly more, and I can tell you that in the last 2 years, the property value went from 35,000 down to 24,000. So I don't think that number is anywhere near what it's supposed to be.
If I understood Councilmember Krogman correctly, what you'd like to do is to get some more status from the county assessor regarding this particular property, which we're going to direct city staff to go ahead and take care of between now and our next meeting of May 29th?
Yes.
Okay. With that said, I need a motion then to go ahead and waive the reading of the first reading of the ordinance and recommend staff to do the final preparations for the second reading on May 29th.
I think Jasper has something.
If I may, I just looked it up. It is zoned R4.
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 Okay.
Why don't you explain what that means very briefly?
Well, that would force me to open up the zoning code. I don't know off the top of my head. There's
I don't
certain
either, but
setback
it's-
restrictions.
Something to do with residential, that I know.
Again,
Yeah.
that's another thing we can find out before.
Yep,
the-
I can prepare that for the next meeting. And
Has, if I may too, has the person offering here indicated what they would do with the land?
they've indicated that they would put additional parking for the
Thank
Third
you.
Street or the Sueur apartments.
And I assume that involves lighting, just to be clear.
That building hasn't had much issues with lighting as far as having enough lighting.
Okay,
So,
For at least the last year, correct?
yeah.
that's good.
Okay, so I'm looking for that motion to waive the reading of the first reading of the ordinance and to recommend staff to move forward with final preparations for the second reading on May 29th.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we now move into the regular agenda. And the first thing is 7 Alpha, which is personnel actions, I'm sorry.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, we do have 2 retirements or resignations that have been received by administration since the last city council meeting. First off is John King. He is resigning from the fire department after 27 years and 3 months of service. So the way the fire department handles this is they will officially recognize Mr. King at the annual fire department meeting held in February. Same as Earl Skelly. His retirement will be officially recognized at that time. Second of all is Rick Rogich. He was a wastewater operator for the city of Sueur. He is resigning after 19 years and 1 month of service. So we wish them luck in their future endeavors, and essentially we want to acknowledge their years of service with the city of Sueur and thank them.
On behalf of the city council for the city of Sueur, we as a city council would like to certainly recognize Commissioner John King for his 27 years and 3 months of service, and also to Rick Rogich for his 19 years and one month of service to the city of Sueur. With that, accept a motion to accept the resignations of John King from the fire department and Rick Rogich from the wastewater division.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We now move to 7 Bravo, which is the City of Sueur 2018 first quarter financial report. Mr. Dowd, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Good. How are you, Mayor and members of the City Council?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you as well. You want to just jump right in? Okay. I would like to start before talking about the first quarter report. I'd like to give you an update on the annual audit, since we did talk about it in the disbursements. The annual audit went very well this year. They were only here for 4 days, which is probably the least amount of time we've spent here, which is great to hear from everybody's perspective. They are planning on doing the first meeting in June, and they will be finishing up stuff with me, and then we'll have a presentation on the first meeting of June. So, any questions on the audit process? We could talk about it at that meeting as well, but just to touch base. Yes.
I have a question about the second paragraph of their accountant's compilation report.
That is not here. Annual audit is not here. This is the first quarter report. We can talk about that too.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about that. So, we'll move on. First quarter report. Yes. Councilmember Favelis.
Sorry. No, I'm just curious, is this some type of standard writing or explanation or something from these folks? When they say management has elected to omit substantially all of the disclosures and the statements of cash flow required by accounting principles generally accepted United States of America. What is with this?
Yes, that is a boilerplate item for us as a notice that you guys are not receiving a full financial statement. So when you receive a full financial statement, you have all the disclosures and the footnotes and statement of cash flows for all of the funds. And that is considered generally accepted accounting principles. And if we do not follow those exact rules, we have to say that we are omitting disclosures and not following generally accepted accounting principles.
But that's only for this report, correct?
That's just for this report, yep. So when you get the financial audit for the year, they will have all substantial disclosures and all the statement of cash flows, and they will not have this boilerplate information on here. It says management because management is responsible for giving you information, and currently I am management because I'm giving you the financial information. Management would be considered city employees, but as a member of AEM, I am representing the city as your financial director.
Okay, so for this report, we're keeping.
It's just for this report, we're saying that it's not audited. Nobody went through the information besides myself and Gene McGann, my partner, who went through it as well. And then we did not give you all the disclosures in the statement of cash flows to show you how our position is changed from beginning of the year to now by giving you changes of deposits and expenditures. So,
Good enough, thank you.
okay. Moving on to page 3 is general information. We'll get into more of those dollars as we go through, but that's just a summary information so you guys have a one kind of hit item. I do want to touch base on number 4, it's page 4. Page 4 is a good illustration of how our general fund cash balance has increased substantially over the years. As you can see in 2015, it was the green line. That is substantially lower, about half amount of cash balance that we had currently 3 years ago. So that's great news for the city. That means dollars are being used as budgeted for. We are budgeting and following those budgets much more closely, and we're budgeting to be able to have some reserves in order to do projects within the city and not have to bond for everything. So that's great news for everybody within the city. Moving on. Page 5 is just another boilerplate information to let you know what we could be earning on interest rates. Current interest rates are like 1.63% for some of the lower ones and upwards of 2.5% for the longer term CDs. That's substantially better than I have been in the past, but we are doing as best as we possibly can with investment, which has increased again substantially the last few years. Touching base on the general fund, which is always the concern of everybody here, on page 6. Number 1 and number 3 notes are intergovernmental revenue and taxes. Those both come in June, July-ish area when we get LGA, which is about, first payment this year will be about $450, just short of that, $440,000 this year, something around those lines. And then the first half taxes will come in. Those are just over $1 million this year as well. So those will come in. Not all of it gets dispersed to the general fund. All of the rest of the taxes get dispersed to the debt service funds that we have bonds out for and other operating funds that we use. But those two items relate to timing, basically. I do want to highlight number 2, licenses and permits. Well below budget, but at this point of the year, all the licenses and permits that we've received so far are probably alcohol or liquor licenses. Everything else related to building permits and stuff just doesn't pick up until second quarter typically, or even third quarter, depending on the weather. So we will see a dramatic increase in those building permits as we move along. Touching base on expenses, building code information is well under budget so far, and it's and that's due to, again, building activity not really starting. And once that does start, we'll have much more building code and building code enforcement going on once the permits come rolling in. So recommend those will probably move up as the year goes on. And number 5, parks, again, is due to we don't really have a whole lot of expenditures for the parks, besides if there's time being coded for taking care of the parks currently, but there's not really a whole lot at this moment. So, any other questions in the general fund? Because that's normally the number 1 concern of everyone on the council and everyone in the audience as well.
To be clear, if I may, under revenues, you
Yes.
expect then that where we're way under right now for actual,
Correct.
that with the disbursements from both the state and our tax income, our levy income.
Correct. Yep.
We'll be back on schedule.
Correct, yeah. So those come in normally June, and then the LGA comes in July. So you'll expect the taxes one to be up at the next quarter, and then the third quarter one, it'll be a down low again, depending on when we receive LGA, and that's always expected. LGA always takes forever to get out the first half, and the second half normally comes end of November, beginning of December.
Okay.
But no concerns on my end, they're just timing. Moving on, page 7. Overall cash balances, as we alluded to earlier in the meeting, prior to the council meeting, but if you look at our cash balance at 331.17 versus 331.18, so the first column versus the third column from the left, we've increased our cash balance about $1 million in that short amount of time, which is great news. Again, that has to do with investing properly, city funds, and using budgeted dollars correctly, and trying to build a fund balance. We're not bonding for everything, which I think is a great item for everybody. So we don't have to worry about tax changes so much every single year. Any questions on the overall cash balance? The main cash also, I wanted to do on a note, I went through these, just try to pick out some big items that went up. And the water fund has increased substantially, and that has to do with the water meter change out. So we didn't increase water rates all that much, but the reason for the huge increase is due to water meters being changed out. We were at what was it, Jasper, 71% amount pumped versus amount billed, which is extremely low, and a huge comment by the auditors every year. And now we're closer to, we had 88 or 89% in the last audit on this 2017 one, which is a huge increase. And that's obviously increase in our cash balance, but no real changes overall for rates, besides a small increase this year. Any questions on cash balance so far?
Does that latter item mean that we should perhaps at some point this year, preparing for 2019, be reevaluating water rates?
Yeah.
Because we're doing so much better at actually getting the right figure?
At the current moment, we are doing really well on the water rate, so we can most certainly take a look at that. I think it's something to be of note, especially moving forward in our enterprise funds, is to note that how well that's doing.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that we are going to decrease them
No,
at all to
understood.
tie my hands, but we'll look at that for sure. Moving on, page 8 explains the changes that happened in the previous page. The main ones are we made payments for debt. The first half debt is only interest only. It's not, we just made those. So, yeah, correct. So we don't have a whole lot of changes for overall for cash balances, but. Any other questions? Okay, moving forward, page 9. There was a note prior to this meeting about why these two numbers in the far right columns don't match each other, which I think is a great question. The reason why they do not match each other is because of the market value changes, and we don't correct the market value changes until year end. So on the far right side, you're seeing the adjusted market value, so taking in the current market value for what is solar CDs. The second to the right column is only taking in their current, or the balance that was at the beginning of the year. So it's not taking in that change in market value from year end, so.
Is that done just before the end of the
Yep.
fourth quarter?
Correct, yep. So you'll see the note at the end of the quarter when we'll have the market value adjustment, but normally those happen during the audit process. They're so small and so minimal, it's only, what, $1,000 or something, it's not worth my time to put that
Well, I was
stuff
gonna
through.
ask you about that because the graph, I know we haven't got there yet, but the graph on page 10, the upper right-hand corner, it talks about the variance of being about $6,286. I'm guessing that's probably the same as what we're looking at here for market value, where
Correct.
it's really about $1,377.
Correct, yeah, so
that
if you.
difference of $5,000, that's what we're kind of looking at between now and the end of the fourth quarter.
That was the beginning of 2018 versus now. So if you look at 331.18 on the page 9, second to the right column there, and the number and cost value, that's actual cost we paid for the CDs. That's not the market value adjustment. So what you're seeing is the cost value in that far left column. That's why it's different than the unadjusted market value and the market value itself. There's three numbers, so it's the cost versus the unadjusted market value at your end, and then the market value currently. Those always go up as the CD matures typically.
As long as they're not going down.
They're not going down, yeah, correct. They'll go down right away because of the market value goes down initially, and then it will slowly creep back up as the CD gets closer to maturity. It'll slowly creep back up, and then we will sell at maturity again. That's why they show the cost number to show you what we actually paid for the investment. Addresses page 9. Again, page 10 I mentioned with Mayor Haig's comment, why the difference is there between cost and market value. Again, we're investing currently. We were And in past years, we never had money to invest and earn anywhere from 1% to 1.5% interest just on short-term investments. We were earning 0.01% in our checking account, which is pretty minimal. And as anybody would have a checking account, that would be the same rate. So because we're able to invest dollars into future and further out years, as you see the 1, 2, and 3 years out, we're able to get better interest rates on those, lock those up for longer periods of time, and again, earn interest on those items that we were not able to do before. We will continue to do that as well moving forward, just because the more interest we earn, the less we have to tax residents within town. Moving on, page 11. Again, nothing major of note for the year for water, besides the looking at actual through 2017, 3/31/2017 in the second to left column, and the actual through 3/31/18 of the third from the left column. Those have increased substantially, about $48,000. That's just through the first part of the year. Again, our normal water usage is really big between second and third quarter. So we should see a larger increase as that goes on, which is great news again. Any other comments on the water fund itself? Okay, moving on. Sewer fund. So far through the sewer fund, we are slightly lower than budget, or slightly lower than last year's usage for sewer, but we are pretty close to being on track with, pretty close to being on track with charges for services for sewer. I'm not directly understanding why it's not up higher, because they're based on the water meters. But I'm not sure if you could touch on that, Jasper, of why those would be, but I don't know why they're not correlating directly with water. They should be more correlated to what water is, because sewer is based off of water charges. As water would increase and your usage of water would increase, so would your sewer charges. So I'm not sure why that's not increased larger. It might have to do with billing timings and stuff too, but I'm not sure. Yes.
There was a mistake with how the city was billing Merpuck,
Okay.
and Merpuck was being charged for treating its own.
Oh, so that would have been last year, not this year then.
Water coming in, right.
Okay. So that would have been why the charges were larger last year and not this year.
Right. Well, that's one factor that I can think of.
Yeah, that could be a pretty big factor too.
Yep. And, the other factor is that one of our largest water consumer doesn't pay sewer for 95%. So AgriPure pays Merpuck directly.
Gotcha.
So the correlation there, about 30% of our water doesn't get charged for sewer directly.
Okay.
So that might be the other correlation, but yeah, Councilmember Favelis brings up a good point that we did charge Merpuck for sewer treatment when we didn't need to. So I believe that matter's been resolved and a check has been
Correct.
cut to do it. So that could be a little bit of what we're seeing here.
And that would be exactly why those charges would be down this year versus last year. That makes much more sense to me.
Zach, the graph
Yes.
on the bottom
Yes.
doesn't really show 2018.
Correct. It only has one little purple X in the middle of between the green and the red. If you look really closely, you can see the purple X.
Okay.
It's
It
not
is
real
there.
pretty.
I look closely. I'm not sure.
Look closely. What I probably have to do next year to show kind of a graph and show the trend is I'll have to show January, February, March. This is based off a quarterly report, so it'd have March, June, September, and December to show the graph as it goes. But when you have March, you only have one X, which happened the same thing on the water sewer. Doesn't really look very pretty. So I'll have to add January, February into next year's first quarter report so you can see a line and you can see where the trend is actually at. It would help you guys out dramatically with looking at the graph. So my apologies on that one. I did want to touch base on expenditures within the sewer fund. They're much lower than they were last year, which is great news. Remember, but just have to remind yourself that we do have that bond principal payment that comes in August, which is $1 million. Correct. So just over $1 million with interest, but the bond principal amount is about $1 million. So just remind yourself again that we have that large payment. It looks really well so far. There were only at 50% of our expenditures budgeted for, but again, remember we have that big, huge number that comes in August that we have to pay for. So always sets the sewer fund back quite a bit. Any other questions on the sewer fund? Hearing none. Okay, moving on. Community center. The only major thing of note is, again, property taxes. Those have not been received so far, so those will be received again in June, depending on timing. The major thing of note is that we had a large amount of payments to the Sueur Henderson School District. I did want to clarify this, and I should have expanded my comment on this page, is that that's a 100% pass-through item. So whatever revenues come into the community center based on the community education items that happen at the community center, those get 100% passed through to the Sueur Henderson School District. So that's why it's such a large item. In 2 years past, and then last year we corrected it, but we had a comment from the auditors about we would net those revenues and expenditures together to show an item of zero. And they would look in the activity and see revenues and expenditures, and that's not proper, again, generally accepted accounting principles. So we separated those two out. So you see a large revenue and you see a large expenditure, which is the charges for services number in that actual on the top of revenues. So see that as 111% of budget, which is the second line item down on the top in revenues. So that's the other line item that's offsetting it, is that's where the revenues go in. And the expenditures are just shown, and they stick out more because there's not many expenditures in that fund. Any questions on the community center? Excellent. Any questions on the first quarter report overall?
I'd like to go ahead and state, as a member of the Personnel and Budget Committee, that it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. You've certainly put a lot of, you've educated the members of the P&B considerably, and I think we're all much better for that. And because of that, we've been able to go ahead and hopefully educate the other members of our city council. And I guess all I can say is just please keep up the great work. I think you've done a wonderful job on this.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't need to take action on this. This is just to receive the first quarter report. You'll get the financial audit, which you'll take action on
Correct.
in June.
Correct. Thank you very much, Mayor, and
Thank
members of
you,
the council.
Mr. Dowd.
Mr. Mayor, we need a motion, though. I would move to receive the report.
Let's do that. Let's receive it officially. So Councilmember Krogman's got a motion to go ahead and receive the first quarter report for 2018. Is there a second?
So moved.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to line item 7, Charlie, which is the 28 governmental fee schedule amendment and 2018 building department fee schedule adoption.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, we have a building official on staff now that's hard at work making changes to the current structure that we have. So what you have before you today is just basically removing the section out of our government fee schedule that talks about building permit fees. So you'll see that redlined version in your packet. And then there is a separate formal document that building official Justin Nielsen has developed regarding the new kind of way that we would like to be able to display our building permit fees. So with that, we can look at what the fee schedule looks like here. Essentially, that whole section in our government fee schedule that was adopted back in December of 2017 would be struck out of that fee schedule. And then it would be replaced in conjunction with this building department fee schedule that has been recommended by the building official. With that, I'll turn it over to Justin Nielsen, the building official. This is his first time presenting to city council, so if there are any questions, feel free to ask him.
Well, first off, Justin, on behalf of all of us on city council, we welcome you to the city of Sueur and look forward to working with you for years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I do have a question that I'd like to ask right off the get-go. We talk about the 1997 Universal Building Code. Is there a particular reason why that particular document hasn't been updated in 21 years?
Yeah, so the last time they actually put together a table, a fee schedule table for everybody was 1997. That was under Uniform Building Code. Uniform Building Code no longer exists. It's now International Building Code. And International Building Code states that they want each municipality to establish their own fee schedule. So really, it's up to us to put together a fee schedule that correlates with what we're charging permit fees off of. Most cities in the state of Minnesota just choose to stick with the 97 just A1 table because it gives them something to fall back to if people question why they're charging certain fees. So it's the most adopted fee schedule out there right now. We can certainly put together our own fee schedule if we choose, but this seems to be what most cities use right now.
Well, that was my second question, would be, with the cities that are ultimately surrounding the Sueur, I'm guessing they're using the 1997 building, UBC as well, then, to go ahead and make their fee schedule.
Yeah, and in fact, up until I got here 4 weeks ago, City Sewer was operating off the 1994 UBC schedule, so we did jump up to the 97 version of that, but yeah, most cities, I did some research, and most cities around us, also a lot of the cities in the greater metropolitan area are using this same fee schedule or something really close to this, that they may have just adjusted slightly on the lower end of the fee schedule to cover their costs.
Well, this is absolutely wonderful to know, because that's something I'm sure that's going to come up a lot with our residents reaching out to those of us on city council. So now at least we have some justification as to why we're using what we're using. So
Yep,
thank you for
absolutely.
explaining that. Any other questions for Mr. Nielsen?
I do have a question.
Please.
On the second page, under residential on the very bottom, you've got re-roofing, re-siding, et cetera. I'll let you catch up and make sure you know where I am.
Sure.
Okay. It seems to me if somebody re-roofs a small building, an outbuilding or a garage, are we charging them the same as if they do a whole house?
Yep, it's a flat rate.
Okay.
Otherwise, the other way to charge would be based off valuation, which you'd refer to that UBC 94 or 97 1A schedule. This is just typical to most maintenance permits. Re-roofing, re-siding, things of that nature would be considered maintenance, and so we just charge a flat rate. We're just trying to cover our costs.
I understand. What if somebody, I'm curious about, if somebody came in and, or rather, they had a contractor come in that did both the house and the detached garage. In other words, not attached. I'm not sure what the term is. They just have one fee or two then?
If they were doing it at the same time, we'd probably charge them just once because I'm still only making one trip up there for the inspection.
Understood. Okay,
So we're just
thank
trying to cover what we have into it. And that's part of the administrative code too for building officials. You have to charge fees commensurate with the services you're providing, so.
Thank you.
And on a flat rate, it's not necessarily the surface area. He'll have to inspect once tear off. I believe that you're looking at what you have for material on for the roof to make sure that that's right.
Yeah, for something
you've
like a
got ice and
re-roof,
water, you've
we're
gotta make
looking,
sure
we're looking at the substrate to make sure that there's nothing damaged, and then the ice and water.
Yep, and then the tar paper, and then after the roofing is done. So he's actually going out there 3 times, and it doesn't matter what he's doing, what building he's doing.
I guess a question that I would have is that you've had an opportunity now over the last 4 weeks to take a look at this Logis software. What's your thoughts on it?
So far, we're still in the process of getting everything set up. I like what we see so far. We're building the tables right now. I've used it before on the other end, just working in several cities around the metropolitan area, and I think it's going to be really convenient for members of the community once we get it established.
Are
So,
you looking forward to being pretty busy this coming summer?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, we hope you are. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Nielsen? With that, thank you very much for coming to the meeting tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Explaining this to us. Thank you.
So, Mayor Hague, members of the city council, what we're looking for is to essentially amend, which we're striking the information in the adopted 2018 governmental fee schedule. So that could be, or that should be one motion. The second motion would be adopting this 2018 building department fee schedule to replace that. So we're looking for essentially 2 motions for this item if council so chooses.
With that said, we'll go ahead and treat them as two separate motions, so I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and remove the section titled Building Permit Fees from the 2018 Governmental Fee Schedule.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. The second motion I'll entertain is the adoption of the attached 2018 Building Department Fee Schedule for 2018. Is there a motion for that?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that as well.
Any additional discussion?
I have a question.
Please.
Do we need to say effective immediately, or is that understood?
That's, I don't know.
It's understood, but if you choose to, you can make it more clear to the public by saying it's effective immediately.
Would you like to go ahead and amend the motion on that
Well,
to make it
maybe we can
immediate?
get that an easier way with the two gentlemen that already moved and
Okay.
seconded.
So Ben, you initiated the motion. Would you like to go ahead and rephrase that to include that it's understood that it takes effect immediately?
Yes.
Okay, would you like to go ahead and second that, Councilmember Favalis?
I'll second that.
Okay, now that we have that cleared up, any additional discussion?
The one thing that I'd like to say about this is that the comments that I've heard in the past and that I've had my own with is that people pay a fee for building inspection and pictures aren't enough. That's not an inspection. And it's my complete understanding that people will be getting what they're paying for, and that is the service for safety and for themselves and for the future of the housing market here in town. And I'm very glad that we're doing this.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to line item 7 Delta, which is the annexation of PID 10.999.8100 and 10.999.0260 and 10.999.7910.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, one thing that you will notice if you haven't already, when you see the 999, that means it's publicly owned property. So just a little nuance with the county's PID system. So what we're looking at here is something that has been to the planning commission, and it's been evaluated by them and recommended for approval to city council, and we are following state statute for this. Typically, if we are annexing land that is privately held, we hold a public hearing, notify residents of that nature, and allow them time to come in and talk about it. Now, there's another way that we can do this. Just because we own the land, we're going to annex it in. And essentially, you can see it. It's right on the northwest side of the airport. It was part of the obstruction removal project. These 3 parcels were acquired for that project. This air photo that you see on here, you can actually see that, where the trees have been removed in that area to remove the obstructions. So what we're doing is essentially taking that in through annexation into the city. It's located in Ottawa Township. What we'll do is we'll contact Ottawa Township, request that they fill out a waiver of any claims to these properties. They're privately held or publicly held, so there aren't any claims. We're not paying taxes, township taxes, any taxes on these. So there should be no claims as far as what I foresee. It's essentially administrative annexation for property the city already owns. So with that, it will be zone transitional until the formal rezoning process occurs, and that will occur at the planning commission, and they will recommend something to city council for final adoption. So what we have here is an ordinance, and what we're looking at doing is waiving the first reading of the ordinance if city council so chooses, and then staff is looking for direction to bring this back on May 29th for the second reading of this. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Just to be clear, These three parcels, they're in essence gonna be just adjacent to the airport with no potential use in the future for anything outside of, more land for the airport for safety reasons, or?
Correct. There is a possibility of a road going through a parcel. There is a possibility of us being able to use it for some park or recreation type activities. The main stipulation for the majority of the parcels is that we can't have permanent structures on them. So you can be on them. They don't even like people parking on them. So you have a road that somebody's driving on to, let's say, access the corporate limits of the city. That's fine. That road would likely be no parking allowed, just because of some of the FAA regulations that we have to abide by. There is a portion of the 8100, the 999 8100, to the east that would potentially have some building availability, but the majority of that parcel, I'd say 70%, basically from this corner to this corner, or this spot to this corner, you could potentially have a small structure, but the majority of it is unbuildable.
The 10.999.0260, that's right off Ottawa Road right there, if I'm not mistaken. Would that be where any parking would occur if we were to go ahead and make that public space for perhaps parks?
No, that parcel right there is completely restricted. So that's in, I think, what is considered Zone A of the airport. So it's directly off of the runway path. So they want to keep that as clear as possible.
Okay.
If I may, when we met with the aeronautic folks from Minnesota, I think it's the one where you sort of see right at the end of the runway coming off of there, there's a ravine there that right now we can't extend the runway because of that ravine. But if we own the land, and if when they do work on 112, we want to have them perhaps put some fill in there, that is another potential use of that. But we own the land already. Just a matter of making it part of our
Just
city.
making it official with, between the township of Ottawa and the city of Sueur. Okay.
If that were to happen, any idea as to what type of aircraft would be able to land from what's allowed now? The advantage to extending that out?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Yeah, we would have to evaluate it. We'd have to look at the benefit analysis of that, because if we add another 300 feet, that might not get us to the length that we need to be to get some of those larger aircraft in here. So it might be a futile exercise. We have to just evaluate it to see if it makes sense. But there's an opportunity there with a large road project with a lot of removals. So it'll be something that we look at with the FAA.
That 8100 lot is one of the nicest views in town. As a park for up there would be unreal, because it overlooks the valley. It really is a nice lot.
You mentioned something about the possibility of a road in the future. Can you kind of elaborate where that might be? And
If we would want to someday, let's say this parcel 7500 would ever get developed, if we would want access from Ottawa Road, it potentially could go through this parcel. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if that would meet ADA requirements or grade requirements, but it could be an option. It is an option just to access the property as well. If there would be, some sort of park structure or something over here, you could access it with the road. So there isn't anything planned, but just to keep city council aware of what potentially could be there. That is a use that is allowed.
any additional questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and waive the first reading of the attached ordinance and have direct staff to go ahead and continue tidying up any loose ends they may have, and we'll go ahead and have the second reading then at the May 29th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. That concludes our regular agenda. We now move on to our comments, reports, and items of appreciation. And for those of you that were here earlier, thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to remember our friend and colleague, Councilmember Wilkie. We'll now go ahead and turn it over to any reports or items of appreciation from any of our city council members. And typically how we do this is we just kind of do a round robin. And tonight, because I saw your hand, we'll start with Councilmember Favalis. If you'd like to give us an update regarding what's going on in your world.
I don't know if you folks have noticed, but I've seen some happy people and some side-by-sides riding around town. And so far, I think that that's been a good thing.
Do we have an idea in regards to how many permits we've issued so far?
Yeah, I
for
just,
UTVs?
Mayor Haig, I checked in with the police chief today, and I think he said we're at 7. So pretty good for first go at it. So people are excited.
My wife wants to be 8.
Well, it's something I can actually ride. It's got 4 wheels. We'll pass on now to, is that all I should ask first? Okay, how about Councilmember Roloff?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Krogman?
Yes, the Airport Commission has attempted to meet twice, and the first time was rescheduled. The second, we did not have a quorum, but I simply want to indicate that we will be having a meeting shortly. If any citizens have any questions or comments, they can certainly contact me or the city administrator, or I believe we could also say Andy Semensky, who helps us out there at the airport. It's an asset that we have that's not well understood, and we want to do the best we can to have it as safe as possible. And I know that Mr. Semensky is working very hard at that. So, but we will be meeting shortly. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any updates from the MMPA or anything of that nature this last few weeks?
no, we haven't met. We'll meet again next week, and we will be bringing some things to them.
Okay, thank you very much. First off, how about our city clerk? Did you have anything to share with us tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, I see our city attorney back there. Would you have anything to offer tonight, Todd?
Not tonight, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we'll turn it over to our city administrator.
All right, I think I have 3 quick things. So I went up to the Minnesota City County Managers Association annual conference. When was it? May 2nd through the 4th. Very good conference. Stacy can attest to this. I brought some stuff back to our leadership team meeting that kind of blew everybody's mind. So it was pretty good. It was really good. I mean, we talked. It was very heavily focused on leadership, especially in kind of a changing local government world. So it was very good. It was my first conference, and I'll definitely be attending again. Let's see. We have a charter commission meeting on the 21st. That will be at 6:00. That agenda will be going out tomorrow or Wednesday. So we'll be looking at that. Let's see. I think I only have 2 things. So, UTVs are going well. That permit and licensing process seems to be working well. Yeah, that's all I have. Yeah.
What, any scheduling or movement forward on the 31 blocks of sidewalks?
Yeah, so we are still acquiring easements, so both temporary and permanent easements. That list is getting very, very small. Likely what we're looking at doing is finishing those up this summer and possibly going out to bid this fall for construction next year. And we'll have to look at, there could be residents that don't sign these easements, which could extend that process out a little bit. So we're still working on it. We're hoping that, the other update is we're hoping that with potential public services director in the near future, they'll be able to really spearhead that project and move it along. I fully admittedly haven't had the time to push that as much as I would like. So, and we, just a little update on the Public Services Director. We went through one round of interviews. We're gonna have a second round of interviews, and then we'll go from there. So I'm hoping that at our Personnel and Budget Committee meeting on May 23rd, I can go there with a recommendation, so that we can bring it forward on the 29th for potential approval and get that position filled. I'm very excited.
There's no issue with the funds for that, because it was
Pre-approved.
right, but some of the money came from a grant, so there's no issues with that if it's pushed out for another year while
No.
we're waiting on.
For the sidewalks, you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
So it's technically a MnDOT fiscal year 2019 grant, so that starts July 1st. So it actually lines up better with the grant. Now, we would have had to front the money to pay for it and then get reimbursed potentially on July 1st. And we were prepared to do that. We're still just working on easement. So there's no issues with the grant.
Will we have any other sidewalk projects this year that you guys are thinking?
There's none that come to my mind at large scale, but there will be some panel replacement, things like that, on some of our more problem areas.
Which you've already started.
Correct, yeah.
Ferry and Third.
Yep, we've done some work on Ferry and Third already. But yeah, you'll see that throughout town. There'll be some areas that definitely need it, and we'll start picking away at those.
How about the trees that have been cut down? Because there's been a fair amount of trees, and I've had people talk, asking me questions about that. What do you know?
Yeah, so there were some trees along Plum Run. There were plum trees that the forester determined they were diseased. It was brought forward by a resident that had a question about it. So those have been removed. Those will be, we borrow a stump grinder from St. Peter. That'll be occurring this week into next week. There were some trees that were damaged and diseased by Sunset Circle in that area. Those have been removed. I think there were 6 there.
Mother Louise Park.
And then Mother Louise Park, there are some trees that have been removed as well. So, and they'll be out with the stump grinder this week and into next week. So you'll see some activity there.
Do those trees get replaced?
They do. So they potentially could. So that's up to the forester. I'm not sure what is happening with the plum trees on Plum Run. Now, some of these boulevards aren't designed to have trees, and there were trees put on them. So I don't know the logistics of it off the top of my head. But if we have a policy, we do replace them if we can.
Can it be the same as what was on Second Street, that we took them down if it was in front of that property, that it could be replaced, but it would have to be on that property front if that's what the people wanted,
And not on the boulevard.
and not on the boulevard?
Yeah, we could look at that. It's a little different with the Second Street project because we had a contractor bringing in trees.
Sure.
We could look and see if we have a tree in our tree farm that we could spade in and bring in there. Yeah, I can reach out and see if there's been any comments or in the area that we can see if we can resolve.
If I may, what is the status of Second Street?
Yes, another good question. So city staff has just developed the final punch list that went to the contractor. Now, final punch list is just a list of things that need to get done before they can pave it, do the final lift of asphalt. And then after they're done with that and all of the city staff that is applicable signs off on it, then it'll go to city council for final acceptance. Once it goes to city council for final acceptance, that's when our 2-year warranty period occurs. So at about month 18, we'll go through and we'll do another punch list. And if there's anything, cracked panels in the sidewalks, anything that needs to be repaired after 2 years, then we can go submit another punch list. But after 2 years, it's ours. So we're starting that process. I think they'll pave that in the next 2 weeks. I think that's what I've heard from Owen Todd, city engineer.
And what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and publicly thank Mr. Tom Gerlich, who's with our Parks Department, for what he was able to provide this morning for the lowering of the flag for Councilmember Kevin Wilkie. So thank you, Tom. And with that, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You all have a great day. Thank you for being here tonight.
Because all the lights were out, and of course, that also means that some of the electronics aren't working that people rely on. And somebody knew what